everybody, it's Barb from Quilts Happen here, and today we're going to have our first tutorial, my very first video, so bear with me. Hopefully it's okay. I'm sure it's going to be jumpy, but whatever, we'll figure it out. And we're going to make our first block of the month block. I'm not sure what to call this block. I keep thinking I need to name it. It's kind of like oceany. That's the kind of the theme I picked for the fabric, but I don't know. Ocean crossing, something. It's got the coral in it. It's funny, the green isn't showing up very much, but there is green in there. So it kind of looks different. Anyways, stay tuned and follow along, and we're going to make this block together. So the first thing that you're going to need from your packet is your pattern. We're going to make this block. It's so pretty. And then you need all of your little pieces of fabric. So you have two of these smaller. They are 4 by 8 inches. And then you have 3 pieces that are 5 by 9 inches. And then you have the background piece, which is 9 by 13 inches. In the pattern, it will tell you how to lay your fabric down so that you can get the right cuts out of each piece. So we're going to start with cutting the smaller pieces, which are these two. I'm going to take my smaller pieces, my 4 by 8s, and I'm going to lay them down on here. I do have them stacked together. So I'm going to lay them this way because that's what the directions say. And I'm going to cut 2 3.5 inch squares out of each one. So I'm just going to use my mat measurements, and I'm going to cut them, and I'm going to, looks like the edges are already straight. If the edges are not straight, go ahead and trim them off and make them square. So if you're using your mat or if you're using your ruler, because you don't want to have the edge of your fabric be a little bit crooked. So I'm going to go to 3.5, and I'm going to cut that. Ugh, I need a new blade. Okay. I'm gonna do the same thing to this piece. Checking to make sure it's all still square. If it doesn't stay square because you slipped or something, just, you know, line it up and redo it. Here's 3.5. Okay. And then I'm gonna turn them so that I can make them 3.5 inches square. Because right now they're a rectangle. I'll turn this one. It looks like I cut that side. Okay. And, where is it? There it is. And now I have my 2 3.5 inch squares for each color, and I'm going to just set those aside. Okay, next I'm going to take my 3 colors, my apricot, my pink, and my green, and on this one I'm going to lay it the same direction, and I'm going to cut 2 4-inch squares. These ones are harder to stack. Not sure why, except that the fabric's a little bit curled. No biggie. Okay. So this time I'm going to 4 inches, which is easier because I have a line. Yay. Okay, oh, but now the trick is when you're cutting multiple layers, make sure that you're pushing straight down. That's what keeps you from wobbling. And you got to push pretty hard because it is 3 layers, but obviously it's doable, and with a dull blade because I obviously need to replace my blade. Okay, it's one set. Now I'm going to do this one. Also going to cut it to 4 inches. Again, if you're not comfortable doing multiples, just do them one at a time. And especially if you're a new quilter, you might not want to do that, because if you do make a mistake, you make it on all the layers, not just the one. So there is that factor, which can be kind of a problem sometimes. So now I have my 2 4-inch squares of each color. These colors are gorgeous. I love them so much. I mean, come on. This is amazing. All right, so I'm going to set those aside. And finally, we have our large background square. So, oh, that is 13. I freaked out because I was like, wait a minute, how is mine small? Okay, so now this one we're going to cut 6 4-inch squares. So you're going to cut a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4, a 4, and a 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up. I'm checking to make sure my sides are square, and they are. I try to be really careful when I cut these out for the blocks to begin with. So gotta get a little bit bigger ruler for this one. All right, so I'm going to cut 4-inch strips, and then I'm going to cut those. So I'm going to go 4 to 4. Talking to myself with my lines. There's one set. Then I'm going to go over to the 8 because 4 plus 4 is 8. Look at me do math. Oops, I slid a little bit, but it'll be okay because it was barely a slide. And then I'm going to do another 4 inches. Yeah, okay, it's a 13-inch. Didn't know that. Okay, so you just have that little leftover. Not a big deal. Now I'm going to turn it. Check to make sure that it's square. And I'm going to layer. Save me some time and also time on the video. But again, do them separate if you want to. And now I'm going to cut 4 and 4 because that will give me a total of 6. Okay. Going back to my little ruler because I love him. Okay. 1, 2, 4. There you go. And I'll go to 8. There you go. And here are all your background squares. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is how many I needed for my background. Okay, so the majority of this quilt block is made using half square triangles. And so basically you're going to take all of your background 4-inch squares that we just cut, and you're going to take your 3 sets of 4-inch squares. Remember, these ones are 3.5 inch, so they're not the right ones. So we're going to use our 4-inchers. And basically we're going to pair one of these to each one of these. And we're just going to make a series of half square triangles. So on the pattern, it does say to draw your line from corner to corner on the back of the background squares. Now these are batiks, but I've noticed, no, it wasn't this fabric. It was a different fabric. I was going to say some of them do actually look a little bit different on the back, but not this one. All right. So I'm going to just go corner to corner from here to here. I always put my pencil down to make sure that put my pencil right on where the corner would be. And then I put the ruler up against it, because if I put the ruler exactly on the corner, your pencil line's actually slightly off to the side. So I put that there and I draw my line from corner to corner. Yep, you can't tell the difference. Okay, batiks are awesome. I kind of leave a little bit of a gap. You probably can't tell on the camera, but there's a little bit of a gap, a pencil width for my pencil line to go directly into the corner. It's not really that big of a deal because we are going to trim these down to 3.5 when we are finished. But, you know, doing things right. I used to tell the kids, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, you must have time to do it again. And I don't want to do it again. Also, I don't have enough fabric, so I'm just going to take my time, and do it right. Now, if you have diagonal seam tape on your machine, you actually don't need to draw these lines. I'm drawing them now in case there's beginners that are watching and they're new to making half square triangles. But usually I don't draw the lines. I just use my diagonal seam tape on my machine, and you'll see it on my machine when we start sewing. And it's a big time saver. Also, if you don't like drawing the lines, you can also take these, fold them in half, and you can finger press or you can actually take it over to the iron and you can actually give it a quick little press on the iron and it gives you your straight line. So any of those methods will work. It doesn't matter which one you do. So now I'm just simply going to pair each one with a fabric, with a 4-inch fabric, because they have to be the same size. So doop-a-doo. I don't usually worry too much if they're exactly straight right now, because when I get to the sewing machine, I'm gonna straighten them up before I put them on anyways. And a lot of people would just leave these in 2 piles and then they would just grab them and go on the sewing machine. And I do that sometimes too. You know, honestly, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I like to line them up because I like to see the 2 fabrics together. Other times I just make the 2 piles and go for it. So either way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew down each side. I'm going to chain piece them. So I'm going to sew down this side, then I'm going to sew down this side, then I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to cut them off, and then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go down the other side, also chain piecing. Okay, so I'm here at the sewing machine and I'm lining up my pieces just in case they weren't, you know, when you pick them up, sometimes they get off. So I am literally just going to sew down and I'm going to just do all of one side, cut them apart, then I'm going to do all of the other side and keep going. Now in this video, I did draw the line and I'm sewing on the 1/4 inch away from the line. However, if you didn't want to draw the line, you could just use the diagonal seam tape. I just line up my point here and I just slide it up and put my presser foot down. Make sure this end is still touching my gray line on the side over here. And then I just sew away. It's a neat trick if you don't want to have to draw all the lines all the time. This block, there's only a few lines, so not a big deal, but still, if you're doing something bigger and you don't want to, it's cool. Sorry, I sing while I sew. Oh well. Fingernails are such good tools for sliding fabric on top of fabric. One more to go, and then I'm going to cut them apart. Some people like to leave them all together and then do the chain on the other side. I don't. It sounds stupid, but I feel like I have too much pressure to make sure that I have them all lined up when I'm going through, and it doesn't matter. It's what I like, so you do you. Okay, I'm going to use my blade saver so that I can cut these apart. It's awesome. If you don't have one, you need one. Anytime, if you're a chain piecer, you need one. All right, then I have another video online already that explains how to use it. But it is that fast. It's awesome. Okay, it lives on top of my sewing machine. Now I'm just going to, I went down the one side on the over here, so now I'm just going to go down the other side and using the exact same process. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Honestly, this is the same as last time, so feel free to just fast forward if you'd like. I keep turning it around because I'm using a 1/4 inch foot also. But the 1/4 inch is only on one side of my foot. The other side is 1/8 of an inch, which is really cool. And actually more helpful than I thought it would be. fun sewing those. Doesn't take very long. Blade saver. Pew. It's also nice because when you use this, you don't cut the fabric. I always get paranoid that I'm going to cut the fabric with my scissors, and maybe it's just me, but you know, if you know me, I am kind of klutzy. So anywho, I will see you at the cutting mat because we're going to cut these apart and then we're going to press them. Okay, I'm at the cutting mat, and so what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to cut, directly on this drawn line. If you didn't draw the line, no big deal. Just line up your ruler from corner to corner and cut. If you slip a little, it's not a big deal, especially if you're a new quilter. Sometimes you slip, it's fine. Just don't go past your stitch seam, or you will have to find more fabric and start over because you didn't have a new blade because my blade has a nick in it. But you don't want to cut through that seam because then obviously it won't be sewed. I mean, that's a given. Okay, so just line it up. Cut, line it up, and cut, line it up. Ah, I did it again. See? I have a star full of blades, and yet I don't replace the blade. But when I do, I can put it in my blade saver and still keep using it, which I think is really cool. It's like recycling. Okay, now these are all cut. So now we have, let's use a darker color. We have half square triangles. That's what these are called. Whenever you have just, they're a square, a half a square is triangle. So we're going to press these, and I'll get out my mat and I'll be right back. Okay, you want to press these, and you want to press them to the dark side. So always put your dark or your printed fabric, whatever you're pressing towards, on top. And then you want to just kind of gently fold them back, give them a little finger press. If you stick the iron on and just push, you're going to end up with a warped middle, and that'll end up giving you a little ridge right here. So pressing properly is actually a really big deal, especially for when you're getting it quilted in the end. So after you've pressed it down, then you can wiggle your iron around. It's not a big deal. So I'm actually going to do a couple at a time. So I'm going to just gently push it back, press it. Going to gently push it back, press it, and then press it with the iron. Easy peasy. Okay. Again, color on top because that's the direction I'm pressing toward. I do know at the end of the block you're going to have to switch some of these seams around, but it's not consistent which seams they are, so we're just pressing everything to the dark side, or the printed side, the colored side, whatever. And then later when you're sewing, you might have to flip a couple of the seams over to nest them. Not a big deal. So flip it back gently. Gently flip it back. Actually, I'm going to do the last apricot. Gently flip it back. And I'm going to press, press, press. Okay, and then same with these little guys. It's not a bright dark color, but it is the color. More often than not, we are going to be turning the green around when we get sewing, but I'd rather do it at the sewing machine because I don't think it's always green. I think sometimes it's the apricot that has to be turned around. But whatever. Totally not a big deal. You just finger press it the other way. Okay. Oops, see, now I had a little lip right there, so you want to make sure you get it all the way over to the seam without pulling on it super hard. You just want to avoid getting any lips. You don't want it folded like that, if you can see that, because then you're going to end up with a little ridge when you sew it all together, and your sewing machine can catch in that when you're actually doing the quilting process in the end. I'm a big presser. I like pressing everything. I like making sure everything is nice and flat and lined up. If you're not super huge into pressing, That's your choice, but I am going to tell you, as a long arm quilter, it does make a difference in the long run. So pressing is your friend. Love your iron. Okay, so we're going to trim these blocks up. And trimming is a necessary evil. It is an important part of quilting. If you like to have your blocks look nice and straight and not have to worry about like uneven seams and things like that, or bulging fabric, which personally I do like. So I'm going to show you two ways. I'm going to show you how to do it on the mat and and just a regular ruler, but I'm also going to show you how to use the block lock ruler. So, or not ruler, but trimmer. So, but first I'll show you the regular way and then I'll show you this way. This is a breeze. It's awesome. It does take a slight amount of practice when you first start, but by the time you're done with these squares, you'd be good. But first, let's do it. I dropped them on the floor. Big surprise. Let's do it with the regular mat. Okay, so, oops, I need to have the one. So let me turn this around, sorry. Had it upside down. So this is my 1-1 corner. So any mat will do, but you do want to try and have, if you can, a mat that has a 45 degree. If you don't have a mat with a 45 degree, maybe your ruler has a 45 degree. So this ruler has a 45 right here. I like using the mat, and most mats do have a 45 nowadays. So what you want to do is you want to line your ends on the 45 degree. Okay, so you want to put these on the end. All right, that one's hitting the 45, and you can't see it, but if you flip it up, it's hitting the 45. So then I'm going to have to trim at 3.5 and 3.5. Then I'm going to flip it around and do it again. So this mat is weird because it's dots, which, I mean, it works. I'm used to it, but oof, when you're first learning, don't use this mat. Okay, so I know I trimmed backwards. It's okay. I always like to start my trimming from the middle if I can. That way I don't, because I tend to nick my blade a lot when I'm trimming from the end. Boy, that one didn't need much, did it? Oops, I'm a little off out there. If you're slightly off, it's not going to matter because it'll get caught in the 1/4 inch seam. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm lined up on the 45. I'm lined up on the 45, but now I actually have a little bit of a gauge because these are straight, so that's nice. So I'm going to do my 3.5 over here. Don't have much to trim off. These are pretty close. Okay. And I'm going to do my 3.5 right here. Okay. Get all my little crumbs off. And then I have my perfectly square 3.5 inch 1/4 square triangle. So, no, half square triangle, HST, half square triangle. So that's the way you can do it if you don't have a block lock. I'm going to show you the block lock. So here we have our fabric. On the block lock ruler, it has the words block lock. And I always think background block lock. They both start with B's. So you always put the writing on the background. So if you put it on here and then you slide it up against the seam, it is now locked up against the seam of your block. Because, you know, every time you fold it over, it's got that little ridge. This has a ridge on it, and it will put it on there, and it'll butt up against that seam, which is super cool. So now all you have to do is go down here, and then just make sure you're within the 3.5 inch. So this one down here is exactly 3.5, but see how that's not and this isn't? That's because none of us are perfect quilters, right? So I'm going to not go past it here, but it's okay if the block is past it here because I'm going to flip it around and trim it off. So now I can trim these extra sides off. And it cuts off your little dog ear for you too, so that's nice. Okay, then I'm going to turn it around. My mat does spin, so you could spin it around if you wanted to that way. But I keep hitting the camera. So now I'm going to line up exactly on the 3.5 line. Ooh, this side doesn't need much, just a couple threads actually. And then that side, and oops, my blade is dull. So it cut off my, there you go. I have a 3.5 inch half square triangle, all trimmed up, and it was super easy. So I'm going to use the block lock to finish these off because it's quick and fast, and I really like it. So I do have these in the store if you are interested in getting one. They're not cheap. This one is, I believe, $35. However, they do come in all the different sizes, and you can buy a whole set of them, but they're really expensive if you buy the whole set. So what I did for the shop is I picked a 6.5 inch, because if you make half square triangles out of a layer cake, you trim them to 6.5 inches, and then you can do every size below 6.5 inches. You can use this one to do a 1x1 if you want to. So this one to me is a good investment. It's $35, but you can trim all the sizes 6.5 and lower. So to me, that was all right. I think you can see the circle of the light in the camera. All right, so I'll show you again. Okay. It does look funny if you do it the wrong way. Like if you do it the wrong way, you're like, wait, what's going on here? This looks really weird. It doesn't line up. So always make sure that you put the writing up against the ridge. If you press to the other side, you may have to, like, you're not going to be on the background. You just have to make sure the writing side pushes up against the lip. Okay, so I'm going to trim that. Maybe I will turn my mat. Okay. The hardest part to remember is when you're turning it around, you have to turn the ruler around as well. Okay, just checking to make sure I'm still on the camera. All right, 2. Okay. Words go to the background. Oops, I fell off. Ooh, 3.5, 3.5. Okay, that's right on 3.5, so. I have it on the right side. Yep. I didn't do a very good job trimming that one, I think. A little bit off still. No biggie. I will just turn it around and do it again. It's not a huge deal. Maybe if I stood up, it would be better. And make sure you stay butted up against the seam. I think that's what happened, is I wasn't all the way on the seam. And so if it gets off it a little bit, like it's butted up over here, but not over here, it'll give you the wrong measurement. But again, all I did was flip it around and do it again. It's not a big deal. Okay, so there's my 3.5. There's my 3.5. I'm past it. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim, turn, trim. Okay. And for all I know, I put it down on the same side. I've done that before too. I've actually turned the piece around, but then turned it too far, and I actually was trimming the same side again. So, who knows? No biggie. Just keep going, trucking. Okay, so there's my 3.5. There's my 3.5. All within. That side doesn't actually need it except for just a couple threads. Okay, turn it around. Exactly on 3.5. I know I'm not. I like to pull my rotary cutter when I'm going through instead of pushing. I make less mistakes that way, so it's what works for me. You do you, and I'll do me. I'm a firm believer that there is no wrong way or right way. Now, I'm a slightly lower over here, so my seam got off a little bit when I was sewing. That's not a big deal because it's so minor, and it's going to fall within the 1/4 inch, so I don't care. I am not the world's most perfect sewer, but my quilts turn out all right, so I'm not going to worry about it. Oh, see? I had to go all the way down here for the 3.5 because I have my writing on the wrong side. Flip that bad boy over, go to 3.5. Now it looks right. So if it looks really weird, it's because you have it on the wrong side. Not a big deal. Boy, this one really got wonky, didn't it? Turn this. Okay, writing on the background. Make sure you butt it up on the ridge. Come on. There we go. Good enough. Okay. Writing on the background. I'm gonna go down. I'm within my 3.5. I say it out loud a lot so I don't forget what size I'm measuring to. You don't want to do it to the wrong size. That would be a big bummer. And you know, you're doing all of these 3.5, but there are other blocks that we're going to be doing to 4.5. So once again, that's what makes this tool useful, because it does have lots and lots of different sizes, and you only have to buy one. I'm all about neat things that are not going to break the bank. Line up on my 3.5. I sure hope this is showing up in the video. This is my first video, so I'm already having to refilm half of it, so. That side is within the 3.5 already, all the way around, so I'm not going to trim it. I am simply going to turn this around, and I'm just going to cut off the little dog ear. So that was nice. Okay, I'm gonna go down. It's so weird because some of them are like right on, and then some of them are like way off. Who knows? Who knows? You get to sewing and thinking about other things, and then your seams get a little not straight, I guess. Whatever. The world is not a perfect place. All right. So they are trimmed up. And here are all my cute little half square triangles. They're just adorable. Aren't they so cute? Okay, so the next part that we do for this block is we're going to, the directions say to lay it out according to the picture. This is the picture right here. So we're literally just going to take all of our blocks, including these ones we haven't used yet, and we're going to lay them all out and make it look like that picture. So keep this close by because sometimes you have to refer back to it. I know I get lost a lot. I'm using my design board because then when it's time to iron, I can easily move it around or carry it around with me. So I like to use it because I keep track of things better. So it's going to go green, green, move it down a little bit, and then purple, purple. Okay, and then my little way I remember is that pink goes to pink, and you want these little points to point to each other. So it's pink to pink. So over here, pink to pink. And then it's green to green. Or teal to green, whatever. And again, you want to make sure the little points point to each other. So it goes like this and like this. If you're not sure, refer back to your picture. Like that. Like that. And then all of these apricot ones just go in the corner, and they actually go, the color goes in. I mean, if you want the color to go out, change it. I don't care. It's your block. If you want it to look like that instead, can you see that? Yeah, if you want it to look like, can you see it? Oh, it's over here. This is backwards. If you want it to look like this, then by all means change it. I don't mind at all. So it's your block. I love the what if. What if you did this? What if you did that? Okay, so now that you have it all laid out according to the picture, double check it, make sure, okay? You have a couple options. So you can, the directions say just to sew it by row, right? And you can totally do that if you want to, or you can make it by pieces. So you could sew this 4 patch in the middle together, and then you could sew all of these outside like flying geese together. These two. So, and then you could put all the pieces together, because you would simply, if this is sewn together, then you would just add these on, then you would add those on, and then you would add these on, and then sew the rows together. That's actually what I'm going to do. I guess I should have wrote it that way in the directions. But I also thought it would be kind of hard to explain on paper. So you can put it together however you like. Personally, I'm going to do it in pieces, in chunks. So if you'd like to follow along with that part, you certainly can. And then maybe it'll make more sense to you, but I didn't know how to write it down in writing. Okay, so the first part I'm going to sew is this middle 4 patch. So I'm just going to take these. It doesn't matter which side you sew on with these, because they're squares and they're exactly the same. You just have to sew them together. Quarter-inch seam. Okay, flip this over. I always clip my extra threads off. I don't like them hanging around. So for this part, I am really just going to give it a little finger press and put it back. Eventually, before I sew the whole block together, I am going to hit it with the iron. But I'm going to press both of them towards the purple. There's no direction that you have to press to. It's just purple's on top. So I'm pressing them over, again, gently pressing. And then I'm just kind of dragging my fingernail or just pushing. Now, because you push them both to the same side, when you make a 4 patch, you're actually turning it one set around. Okay, so it looks like that. So they're both pressed to purple, which means the backs are going in opposite direction, right? So when I lay these together, I can actually nest up my seams. And I'll show you what that means in just one second. So if you lay them together, and then you kind of wiggle them around until you can feel with your finger that there is no gap between these seams on either side. So if you look, see, they're going in opposite directions. That one, the seam is going that way. This one, the seam is going this way. So when you push it together and they're lined up, you should feel a perfectly seamless feeling in the fabric. So if you felt a gap between them, and trust me, you'll feel it. If you feel that, then that means they're not lined up and your points are going to be off when you get done. So if you want to, you could take a pin. Excuse me. And pin that together so it stays. You could also use a clip if you want to. Or once you get it in your machine, you can put it there and then grab it with your fingers and hold it in place. It's not very far, so it's kind of easy to hold this one. Plus, they're squares. They're not, so it's not lumpy. It's a little bit harder to do when we're going to do the half square triangles, but it is still totally doable. And then when you open it up, my point in the middle is actually perfect. Yay me. Okay, so now I'm going to lay this back. Oh, watch. Pink to pink, green to green. Ooh, I almost had it the wrong way, right? Okay, so now I'm going to do these end units. I'm making flying geese with half square triangles. So I'm literally just going to take the piece, flip it over, and I'm going to sew down this white side. Sometimes I get confused on which side I'm sewing on. So you might want to stick a clip on there so you don't forget. Now, this is what I mean by they're going the same direction. These seams are both pointing that way, the extra fabric. It's going to make it very bulky, and it'll probably jump on your machine when you're sewing, and that will move your fabrics apart from each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up. I'm going to take this off for a second, but I'm going to put it right back on so I don't confuse myself. And I'm actually going to take this green one and I'm going to flip it over. Just kind of give it a little bit of a finger press. I'm flipping it over. I'll pick up the other one. And now I'm going to maneuver them around until I feel no gap between my seams here. Oh, and there was a little bit of a gap, so I'm going to kind of keep wiggling it. Sometimes you got to go back and forth a few times. Okay, there I go. Now there's no gap. So I'm going to put it in my machine and I'm going to sew down the side that has the clip on it. I'm actually going to start on this end because it's thinner and it's easier to do. But I kept my clip on it so I know which way it goes. That's the hardest part, is remembering, wait, where was I sewing again? And if you forget, lay it back on your design here and figure it out before you sew. That way you don't have to use your seam ripper. I felt it move a little bit, so I'm just readjusting. That's where the pins come in handy. Now I'm going to chain piece the rest, but I wanted to show you what it looked like. Okay, so now when I open it up, my little points right here are really, really close. Actually, that's really, really good. Okay, and you should have this 1/4 inch down here. Now I'm going to lay it back on my board and I'm going to go green to green, pink to pink. I always keep repeating that. Now I'm going to do the same thing with these ones, but I'm just going to chain piece them through. So I'm going to flip it over. Okay, I'm going to sew on this side, so I'm going to clip that real quick, especially when you're chain piecing, because very easy to forget. Okay, again, I'm going to flip the green over just because I flipped the other green. Wait, let's check. Yep, I'm going to flip the green over. Give it a finger press. Now I can tell they weren't lined up when I flipped that over because they were on top of each other, so that was good. Okay, I'm going to put my clip back and I'm going to start on that other end again. I'm still holding it together where I lined up my seams so I could nest them. It's called nesting or locking. Okay, I'm going to flip it over again. I'm going to sew down this white side. I'm going to line it up. When I made the first block, I kept messing that up. Anyways, so, live and learn. Okay, folding it over, and now I'm going to put this in on the side that has my clip. Take my clip out. Still holding my seams together. Again, if you want to use a pin, that is great. I love pinning. Okay, I'm going to flip it over. And it was all the greens. Maybe we could have just pressed all the greens. I guess if you're doing it this way, you could press all the greens to the other side. Okay. I didn't put the clip on. Shoot, see, now I can't remember which one has the two sides. Okay, so it was this way, this side, okay. Before I pick it up, I'm gonna put the clip on it. Okay, well that makes sense because I was fiddling with this seam, but still, double check. We have to seam rip, but we don't like it. Although I do have really nice seam rippers in the shop. Okay, starting on this end again. Doesn't matter what color was on top. I'm really curious because I kind of feel like I did that one wrong. It feels different, so I'm going to check it in a sec. Okay, I'm going to take these apart. All right, so now I'm going to open it up and I'm going to lay it on my board. So it's weird because it doesn't go here. It could go here. Okay, so that one could go there. You just got to make it so that you point to the pink to pink. So that one goes there. Did I do this one right? This is one I feel like I did wrong. Nope, I did it right. Okay, whew, they're pointing. All right, so now before I sew all the rest of this together, I am actually going to press because I want to make sure that I can press these seams here so that they're going in opposite directions from each other, because I really like my points to nest and lock up. So doing it this way is kind of weird. If you sewed it by row by row by row, you just press all those that way, all of these this way, all of these this way, all of these this way. But because of the weird way I did it, I now am going to press each one of these different, because this seam is going this way. So I want this seam to go that way. So I'm actually going to flip it over that way and give it a little finger press. And to be perfectly honest, you could just finger press the whole thing if you want. Or if you have one of those little seam rollers. Do I have one in here? Yeah. If you have one of these little seam rollers, right? They're all different kinds. You can also, you know, this is all pressed over. I can actually just roll it. But I have found, just be careful, because you can actually roll your fabric on top of there and leave a big old lump right there. So just be careful. You can do it either way, or finger press it and then give it a little seam roll. Now this one is going this way, so I want this one to go that way. So I flipped it so the seam is pointing, the extra fabric is pointing that way. Flip it over and give it a little bit of a finger press. Okay. All right, now this one I'm going to check. This seam here is going down, so I want this one to go up. Up is that way for me. I don't know if that's not up for you, but it's probably up. It's up for me. And then check this one, and it is this one is facing up, so I want this one to face down. And I'm gonna give it just a little bit of a finger press. And you know what? I'm just going to go get my iron, and I'm gonna smash all these right on my design board. I think it'll be okay as long as I don't leave it on there for too long, because there is. Okay, so I got my iron. I'm just going to do a quick little flat press on all of these. The ones where I just finger press them. They are nice and flat. Okay, woohoo! All right. Should be okay. Okay, so now I'm going to sew this piece onto this chunk, and then they're kind of stuck to the thing now. Then I'm going to sew this one. Wow, I kind of melted it on there. That's okay, don't do that. Okay, I'm going to sew it onto here, and then I'm going to sew this one onto here. Okay, so I'm going to take this, fold it over, just like before. They're facing the same way. So now I'm going to turn the apricot one over, seam over, and I'm going to give it a little finger press. See what I mean by we don't really know which seam is going to have to flip over. That's why we didn't worry about it when we were pressing the first time. Boy, when you flip it over, make sure you're doing it, you know, you're not giving yourself a ridge. I just did on accident, so. Okay, and then I'm going to sew down that side. Sew those two pieces together. Keeping my finger on it to hold it in place. Okay, now I'm going to take this one and flip it over. And because we've ironed them or pressed them the opposite directions, this seam is facing down, this seam is facing up. I can now lay them together and feel that there's no gap. This is a little trickier because it's thick. So you know what I recommend is slide it off, like put it way far away. You'll feel the hole and then bring it slowly together. So then when you feel that hole disappear, you'll know you made it. Okay. So if you really want to get a nice point, you want to try to not cross the seam line that's right here. If you do, whatever, not a big deal. We're all going to live. But if you can, try to avoid it. You can't really see it because it's on this back of this side, but it's all the way down here. If you do the 1/4 inch, you should be pretty close. So just lining those up, making sure I have no gap. And then I'm going to put it under, but I'm going to hold my finger on here and make sure that it doesn't slip. And for those of you that are new, when you heard that big bump on the sewing machine, it's normal. Okay, I'm gonna flip this one over. Again, they're going in opposite directions, so I'm gonna take the apricot one and just change my seam direction. Or not seam direction, it's like the pressing direction, I guess, but okay, I'm gonna pull it up, line it up, feel no gap. And then I'm going to sew this together. I can cut these apart. Okay. Oh. Forgot to cut off my little extra threads. Okay, now I have to put them back in to my board. I'm going to start with this one because it's the easiest one to remember. Okay, so I'm going to lay it here because I've got green to green, pink to pink. Now I want to make sure I get pink to pink and green to green. So, oh, this has to go in the corner. It must be the top. And then down here, I want to make sure that I've got pink to pink. And so now it's all laid up there. Okay, so now I'm going to take and I'm going to put these ones on this end. So I'm just going to flip this one over. I always like to flip the small one instead of the big one. Okay, once again, they're going the same way. So I'm going to flip the apricot over and I'm going to give it a little finger press. Make sure it's lined up. And then I'm going to hold my finger on it so that it doesn't slip apart. Okay, now I'm going to take this one, flip it over. This one should be good to go because we ironed them in opposite directions. Pressed, we didn't iron. Iron is when you slide things. We press gently. Okay. And then I'm going to 1/4 inch seam that. Oops, I got off a little bit right there, so I'm just going to reposition it. Check my middle. That's when pinning or clipping is helpful. The longer your piece is here that you have to go to sew, if you clip or pin, it's helpful because it holds everything in place for you. So then the last one, I'm going to flip this over. Again, they're going the same way, so I'm going to flip the apricot over. I like to do it on here because then it's harder surface, I mean, not harder to do. Okay, so now I have to put it back in because I can't remember. Okay, flip it over, and then I'm going to sew this side together, making sure I have no gap between my fingers, and I don't. To pull these apart with my snowflake. Love that little guy. Okay, and it just lives on top of my sewing machine. All right, again, I'm going to lay out the middle because it's the easiest, because you can't get that wrong. And then I can lay all these pieces accordingly. So I've got pink to pink. And then I have pink to pink. Okay, the green is really light, but it is there. All right, so now before I sew these all together, I am going to press them because I want to be able to nest my seams and lock them in. And I don't like lumpy blocks. I like them to be flat, so I am going to press them. If you don't care, then you can certainly just go around here and just finger press and go, right? So this one wants to go. You can tell by the way it's laying. It wants to go that way, so I'm gonna let it. And then I'm going to just give it a little finger press like I do on everything. Okay, so it's pointing towards the middle. That's what it wants to do, so I always let that one do what it wants. Now I need to make sure that these seams are all going opposite. So if this one here is going that way, the extra fabric is going that way, I want my extra fabric going that way. Okay, if you did it row by row, you wouldn't have to worry about that because you would just do all one way, all one way, all one way, all one way. but that's not what I did. So these ones are going to point out because these ones are pointing in. Just flipping over my apricot some more. Okay, so flip it out. Flip it out. Okay, and I am not going to press on this again because I actually kind of melted it right there. That was funny. So I have my pressing mat. Grab the iron. And I'm literally just going to slide this over here. I finger pressed it already, so it's good to go. Just try not to let the seams move too much when you're doing it. Okay. Try not to change the direction of the fabric, which I did a little bit on that one, so I fixed it. Okay. Press. Remember, try not to slide your fabric around. Once it's hot and set, then you can start moving your iron around and check to make sure you don't have any ridges that you've actually put in with your iron, if that makes any sense, because sometimes if you slide your iron too much, you'll actually create ridges where you don't want them. And I'm actually going to take this and turn these pieces over because that's kind of driving me nuts. So yeah, I pressed my apricots the opposite way and my green the opposite way, but the whole thing didn't flip, so I'm flipping it now. And this one is just going to have a little twist in it because see down here, when I did it here, it flipped around right there. No big deal. I just press it flat because you won't be able to tell once it's in there. Okay. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble the final rows. They're all pressed in opposite directions, so that's really cool because we can nest them up and get our seams to get as close as possible. So I'm going to flip the top one on. Now this I am going to pin because I am going to nest this one in the middle. And what did I do wrong? Because that one is not pressed the right way. Oh, it's from the seam we did before. Okay, that's okay. I just flipped it back over with my finger. Okay, I want to make sure that I get them lined up, make sure I feel no gap. Okay, no gap. So I'm going to pin because I don't like my seams to move. Okay, especially because now we're lining up 3 different seams. So now I'm going to pull this one over, and I have to pull it this way a little bit at the top. It's okay, it's going to have a little bubble, it'll be fine, don't worry. Okay, so now I feel no gap. Gonna pin it. Okay, coming over here. Maybe when I ironed it, I pushed it the wrong way. I had to flip that one. Oh no, it was just laying the wrong way. Okay, it was fine. And I'm going to pin it. All right. So now, even though there's a little bit of a gap here, when I'm in my sewing machine, I'm just gonna kind of stretch it a little bit as it sews and it'll line up. Okay, I'm gonna try and get these 2 together because that's where I have to start. It is kind of hard to start where you have a seam. So hold on to your threads in the back when you start, or if you have a small piece of fabric left over from something else, you can put that in your machine and sew it through. That way, if you need to, you can give it a little gentle tug while you're going. So to keep it from, you know, building up and nesting on the inside of your bobbin thing right there, because that does happen more often than not when you're using a big seam. So I'm going to actually put this in, and I'm going to make myself a little leader. So now if I need to, I can give my fabric a little tug when I'm going. Okay, just to make sure that it doesn't get sucked down in there, because it does sometimes. Alrighty, so 1/4 inch all the way down. Take it slow, don't go super fast, because when you get here, you are going to want to stretch it. I'm going to need to stretch it just a little bit. So now I'm getting here, so don't forget to take your pins out, otherwise you will break your needle. Go across. Now I'm tugging it just ever so slightly. Holding that seam over because it's going the wrong way. Okay. This is is where your stiletto comes in really handy. And unfortunately, I don't have mine right here, but I'm just gonna use my scissors. A stiletto is really perfect because then you can actually hold it down and it'll go underneath the foot. So I'm gonna take out my pin, so I no longer have a pin, so the stiletto can hold it down. The scissors are a little bit too bulky. Take the pin out. And make sure these ones are lined up at the very end. And you can hear that it got bulky at the end, so okay, I'm going to cut my little leader off. All right, so hey, that looks pretty good. See, I pinned, and so that one came out really well. That one is pretty good. It's a little farther down, but who cares? And that one came out really good. So yay! That makes me happy. So now I'm going to take this one, flip it over. I'm going to turn the whole thing over because I always work this way. Okay. That's really weird. I wonder why these are laying the opposite way, but whatever. If it is, just flip it over. Okay. I didn't check that one apparently when I pressed. No big deal. Make sure you have no gap. Feels good. Remember, if you can't tell because it's thick, spread it apart, then you can feel the gap, and then you can work your way putting them together, and then you'll notice when the gap is gone. Okay? So here, I'm going to put it together, pin. Okay, and then I'm going to go over here. Doesn't matter what order you go in. I always start in the center just because I feel like that one is the best one to start with, because then it kind of keeps everything else in line. But you can do you. Oh, there it goes. Couldn't quite get it, but I felt it right when it slipped into the right place. Okay, now I'm going to go here. And now see, these ones are going the same way, so I'm actually going to make sure that I flip it over. Get it up to the top. There we go. And since this is my starting point, I'm actually just going to use a clip instead because it's my starting point. So I don't need to hold it in place all the way through. And this one I'm going to line up when I get to the end on the sewing machine. Okay. Starting in the big section again. So I am going to do another little leader. I'd just rather not fight with it personally. So you know what? That takes care of my problem. And then I don't need to worry about it. I want to relax and sew, not take things apart because it's knotted. Okay, take out my pin. Okay, now I'm going to check to make sure this one going the right way. Okay, now that I'm closer, I had my stiletto. Always worried about sticking scissors under there because they really don't fit. Okay, now. Okay, I'm past the last seam, so now I'm going to take this last one and I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to have to turn this apricot over. And now I'm going to line up this one so I can hold it. I'm going to go into that. Just don't sew your finger. Nobody wants to sew over their finger because that's horrible. Okay. Alrighty, so now I'm going to open it up. And these corner seams look pretty darn good. And this one too. This one is actually lined up, but this flying geese, when I made it, wasn't. So it's a little bit of a, like, it doesn't really show, like it's not, doesn't come directly to the point. But when you hold up the block, can you really tell? No. So I'm going to leave it. I don't care. It's close enough honestly, once you quilt it, it's not going to show that much anyways, and that's pretty darn close. So I'm okay with that. Next up, we're going to press the whole block. Okay, so there are lots of ways that you can press this. You can actually just press it over, and you can press it over, and that would be totally fine. Personally, I like to press my final seams open. It's just my little nerdiness, but you can do you however you want. So it is kind of a pain in the to press seams open, but whatever. So I like to press them open, and I just, you know, give them a little finger press first because it's harder and you don't burn yourself. If you try and do it with the iron, I always burn my fingers because it takes some of these little corner spots take a long time to get open, and then you get steam all over your fingers and it hurts. I don't like burns. Burns are bad. Okay, so now I've kind of finger pressed it so they're pretty much open. I'm going to take my iron. I'm just going to gently travel down. See, that one flipped over, so ooh. You can hear the steam coming out. Steam is scary. Just kidding. Okay, so now I'm just fixing a couple of these that I flipped over. Not necessary. You don't have to. You don't want to, but you know, some people are just more anal than others, and I guess that's me. Okay, see, like this one's flipped over. There ain't nothing I can do about that, so they're just gonna live like that. Now I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna do the same thing to this one. Again, if you don't want to press your seams open, you do not have to. You are more than welcome to just press them to one side. This is also a nice way of making sure that you've caught all your blocks, because sometimes when you're sewing, it happens to everybody, you know, you miss the spot. The block slips, the fabric slips or whatever, and you end up with like a little gap or a little hole where it didn't actually sew all the way through. And no big deal, just this is a good way of making sure that you have them. A couple of these got kind of close, but they actually made it, so I'm going to leave it. Okay, I'm going to press. Have to get a weird angle because my sewing machine is right there. Okay, press. And press. So now that I've pressed a couple things opposite directions or whatever, I'm gonna just go fix them. Not a big deal. That one, there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm just gonna flatten it. Okay. Turn it over, and now I always like to give it one nice good press. Try not to go diagonal if you can avoid it, because you don't want to really stretch the fabric. I try to go up and down. Once it's all set and good, then you can kind of start moving it. If it looks like you've tweaked it and made it weird, just kind of try to finagle it back in. Okay. When you look here, you can see that it's flipped over right there because this green is really light. But when you get all said and done with the batting inside, it's not going to show. So there is your block. You did it!